is to cut out a 3 cm wide strip on the bias of your fabric, so that's going this way. We're not following the grain like that, we're going to go across the fabric like that. So to do that, I like using a pattern master. You can do this with a ruler, but it does make it a lot easier if you have one of these. So I've lined this up with the grain of the fabric, and I'm just going to draw a line down there diagonally. So that's along the bias, and then I'll use this to draw. We want it to be 3 cm wide, so there's the 3. Just line that up. 1, 2, 3, and then we'll just draw down here. And it does like to move as you draw it, so just make sure you hold that nice and still, and don't press too hard with your pen or chalk when you're drawing. So there's our bias strip. As you can see, that should be 3 cm, so that's perfect. And then we need to cut that out, and I'm using a polyester satin. It just makes it a bit easier. If your fabric has a little bit of a shine to it, it makes it a bit easier to pull it through. But you can use all fabrics for this pretty much. Some are just easier than others. And so when we're using the bias, it has a bit of stretch to it. So that will stretch a bit, and that will come in handy later on. So there's our bias strip. And if you want to do a much longer piece of rouleau, what you can do is either cut the strip on the middle of your fabric so that it's going to be longer, or if you cut several strips that are shorter, what you can do is you can seam them here, and you just treat this all as one continuous piece when you sew it up. So next we're going to sew a line of stitching down our fabric. So if you fold your bias strip, just fold that in half with the right sides together, and we're going to put that under our machine's foot. And I've got here the seam allowances marked on, so we're going to use a 1 cm seam allowance. For me, that's just this groove here, and we're just going to sew down here. You want to use a relatively small stitch, so I'm using a 2 mm stitch length on my machine. And once you've got a little bit of a tail at the back of your material, then what you want to do is when you're sewing along, stretch it a little bit. Just keep it quite taut when you're sewing. And then when you come to the end of your bias strip, what you want to do is get the stitching to be further away. So you want the stitching to kind of taper out towards the end like this. And then you do your back stitching. So what you can see is here the stitching just goes out here, and that will just make it a lot easier for us to turn this in the right way. So now we're going to turn our cord in on itself so that this seam allowance is all on the inside and we have the right side of your fabric showing. We need to just trim the ends like that, and then the end that you've got tapered out, we want to trim that off as well, and then also trim the seam allowance in so it goes right up to where your stitching is. So you've got no seam allowance, and it just kind of gradually gets wider as it goes down. And then we take our loop turner, and it's really important to use one of these. You really are going to get the best finish with one of these. And you thread that all the way in to the top, so you've got all of your loop down on the stem. And then we have a little stick here, kind of catch, and you want to stab that into the fabric, not too close to the top because it's going to fray and cause problems later on, but you want it to be probably about 6 or 8 millimeters down, and you just stab that through the fabric on the side opposite the seam allowance, so where the fold is, you want to stab it on there. And then you want the fabric to be underneath this loop, so it's all enclosed there. And then getting this started is the hardest part, but with the tapered edge it should make that quite easy to do. So you just pull that like that, and then you just pull from the metal loop a bit, and then kind of push that up and get more of it to turn in on itself, and then pull a little bit more from there, and then pull that bit. Just kind of ease it all through. And then once that bit has come through the end, it will all just go very easily. So now to finish it all off, we're just going to steam our rouleau cord just to get it, it just gives it a really professional finish, makes it really firm, and just the way the couture houses are going to have theirs. So to do this we need a pin, and we're going to stab that through the end of your rouleau, just like that. And then we'll put it into the ironing board like an anchor, and you want it to go at an angle facing the bulk of your cord. So we'll put it in like that. So the pin's kind of facing in like this to the ironing board, facing this way. And then I've got my iron on the hottest setting. We're not going to press down onto the rouleau, we're just going to steam it from above. So we're just steaming it like this, hold it above, grab this end of your rouleau and pull it. So as you steam, you've got that really taut and stretched. And just steam over that, and then straight away with your hand, my camera's all steamed up, but we just go like this and just roll it like that and make sure it's all really pulled nice and tight from this end. So make sure you've got clean hands, because it can kind of mess up your fabric, especially if you've got a light coloured fabric. And then you take your pin out, and that's your finished product. So you'll have a really plump cord. It's not floppy, it's not flat, it's just a really round, perfect rouleau cord.